I thank you very much for tuning into That Will Nevr Work podcast. I have a guest who spent 15 years failing at business after business, and then in January of 2021, working 16 to 20 hours a day on 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. He built a YouTube channel from zero that replaced his six-figure income in just 3 months with no startup capital, no investors, and no safety net. Today, as the founder of Faith Roar and CEO of multiple companies, Scott is on a mission to help 1 million people achieve financial freedom. Not because he had it easy, but because he knows exactly what it costs to keep going when every indicator tells you to stop. Let's talk about it right after this.
Educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Nevr Work, an award-winning podcast where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
So, my guest, I'm not going to read a bio. I'm going to give you some bullet points, and hopefully you can resonate with them. He's relentless, faith-fueled, he's real, resilient, purpose-driven, family-first, bold, and unapologetic. Now, if you could relate to those things, be sure to follow Scott, and we'll have all that information at the end of the show, as you well know, and in the show notes. But Scott, first I want to say thank you very much for coming on to the show.
Thank you so much, Maurice. It's a pleasure to be here, and I can't wait to get in this and help your audience just understand what it takes to really start a business and all the benefits to it.
So, and I appreciate that. And as I told you in the green room, I've done my homework. So let's get rocking and rolling. So, Scott, you were 15 years deep into failing at business when you decided to go all in at one time. But this time with nothing but a camera and an idea and maybe 3 to 4 hours of sleep based off of all the other things you had going on. So most people would have quit maybe even a decade later, because I listened to a podcast, they said they think that you were overnight success, but you've been at this for a little minute. So what was still burning inside you that wouldn't let you stop?
Yeah, a lot of people think I'm an overnight success because they saw those 3 months of work to find that success. They didn't see the 15 years of failure and the multiple different businesses that I started and didn't work and just put aside and kept working. And I had that tenacity for one reason. And it's because when my boys were about 2 years old, I was leaving for work one morning, and we had a baby gate at the top of the stairs so they didn't fall down the stairs and kill themselves. Right. And I was climbing over that baby gate and going down the stairs to head off to work. And I hear my two twin 2-year-olds up at the top of the stairs, and they're grabbing onto the edge of the baby gate, and they're crying, and they've got tears dripping down their faces, and they're begging me in unison, saying, "Daddy, please don't go. Don't leave us, Daddy. Don't go, Daddy." And it absolutely broke my heart. I was definitely late to work that day. I went upstairs, gave them big old hugs. And as I'm walking out the door, I said, I'm going to find some way, somehow, to make a way that I will never have to leave them ever again. And that is what set within me that deep, deep desire to figure it out. And it was about 5 years after I made that decision that I ended up starting that YouTube channel that went on to have so much success. And that was really the motivating factor. And I think that's key number one. You've got to have an extremely deep and powerful why in order to be successful, because without that why, you're never going to get through all the difficulties and all the failures.
So, Scott, I'm going to ask a real question that as I'm listening to you speak, even though your children said, "Daddy, why are you leaving? I miss you," whatever those emotional ties can be. But a lot of times those golden handcuffs keep us locked up. why didn't they keep you, there where you're like, hey, you know what, babies, I'm making this money. Like, don't you like, bebop or, whatever the commentary might be at that time, or, we trying to go to Disney World, whatever the situation is, because again, the business side may not be working as much, but this is steady. So why were you able to not allow those golden handcuffs keep you tied up to that job?
Because I had been laid off before. And I realized very quickly that a job is not secure. A lot of people look at jobs, they feel like it's job security. Oh, it's safe. I'm getting a paycheck every month. But what happens when you're not? What happens when you get laid off? I mean, I went through the 2008 financial crisis. I experienced it. It was painful. And a lot of people aren't thinking in those terms. And there's some really good advice out there from financial planners about having 6 months worth of savings. But the reality is that job is not secure. If I have a business and I have 100 clients and one client drops me, I've still got 99 clients. I'm fine. But if I have a job and that one job drops me, I've just lost all of my income. And so I actually feel like a job is the least secure way to make money, and that a business is actually far more secure than a job is.
So we're talking about, as we're building our business, and we jump into YouTube because we hear and see these influencers. We've seen them actually mature. Right? We've seen them on YouTube. Now we're seeing them in movies. We've seen them in TV shows. Like, we see them on Netflix, all these type of things. And so we see the glitz and glamour, but not understanding one of the things that you're mentioning, like, hey, you still had your 9 to 5, but you also had to put in a whole nother 9 to 5 afterwards. So how did you build up that tenacity or that work ethic? Because a lot of times we don't see those things behind the scenes.
A lot of the other businesses that I'd started that did not work out were in the exact same boat. I would go to my job 9 to 5, really 8 to 5, and then with commute time, 7 to 6, and,
Right.
And then I would get home and I would immediately start working on the business all evening long. And I did that with every single business. There was nothing new or special about this one. It's just this one actually worked. And for me, I had to keep trying things over and over and over again until I found the one thing that actually worked for me. And a lot of people, maybe they would have given up after the first one. Maybe they would have given up after 3 or 4. But I kept going because I said, I have to find some way somehow to stay home with my kids. And I don't care how many times I have to try. I'm going to keep going until I figure it out. And so that is really what it was for me. There was nothing special about the work ethic of this one.
Okay.
I went all in on every business because I was told something a long time ago that every single person in the world is going to work 40 years of their life. The question is, are you going to do it in 20 or are you going to do it in 60? And I said, if I'm going to build a business, why not build it as quickly as possible and get to that dream of staying home with my kids as quickly as possible? Why delay it? Why drag it out? Why not go all in?
And I could say why. I mean, I go all in, Scott, because if I have this 6-figure income, I've started 1 or 2 businesses already. I've heard no more than once, right? Hey, you know what? Won't you become my client? No, I'm not ready for all that type of stuff. I'm trying to go get a vendor and they told me no. And now I've also invested way more money than I anticipated because now, Scott, you're trying to tell me another way. I don't need to invest any money. So I'm a little nervous. I'm a little gun shy. So how should I get over that? Especially if I heard these no's, I heard these, opportunities that sound great. On paper, they look great, but I've been turned down. So how do I get over that place of being gun shy and moving forward, especially if I feel like I've invested a whole lot more emotionally and financially?
Is a couple of things. So it's a big question. And I think for starters, it goes back to your why. For me, every time I went into the office, I felt like I was in jail because I had to go in at a certain time. I had to be there at a certain time. I had to stay until a certain time. I had to go in a certain number of days per week. I had a limited amount of time for vacation or PTO, and it felt like I was a slave. And in a lot of ways, I was a slave to my boss and to the company I was working for. And I wanted out of that so badly, I was willing to do whatever it took in order to make it happen. For me, it wasn't a question of, well, I'll try it. Hopefully it works out. No, it was, this has to work no matter what. And so that was the first thing. The second thing I would say is, in the beginning, there's going to be a lot of downturn, a lot of difficulties, a lot of struggle. And there's an old term in sales that every single no gets you one step closer to yes. I have a couple of life mottos that I live by. One of those is, the answer is always no until you ask. And so if you have somebody you want to work with and you're too scared to ask them, the answer is guaranteed to be no because you didn't even ask them. But if you do ask them, there's a chance they might say yes. And the other life motto that I live by is, you're guaranteed to fail until you try. And so if you want to go into business and you want to get it started and you just think you're starting your business, but you're actually just preparing to start your business. And what I mean by that is, you spend a bunch of time listening to podcasts, you watch YouTube videos, you read books, but you never actually go out and try to sell a product or service, then all you're doing is learning about a business. You're not actually starting it. And so you're not actually trying. And in that way, you're guaranteed to fail. If you're actually going out there and talking to people and trying to make those sales, sooner or later, you're going to find success. It's just a numbers game. And most people have about a 1% success rate, which means you've got to talk to 99 people that all tell you no, that all tell you it's stupid, all tell you it's never going to work, to find that one that's going to say, yes, let's do this. And then you're off to the races because now your confidence is built. And so getting through those moments, and I'm going to tell you right now that moment getting started is hard, but it's nothing compared to what you're going to go through at some point a few years down the road. Because I have never met a single successful person ever that did not go through some exceptional difficulty and trial that they had to overcome to find success. Because it's usually that extremely difficult trial that stops most people in their tracks and turns those people into the kind of people that later tell their children, oh, that'll never work. And it's not because they're wanting to hurt their kids or don't want their kids to go try new things. It's because they got hurt trying something in the past and they don't want to see their kids get hurt. And so they're trying to protect their kids. And interestingly enough, it's the parents that encourage their kids to be risk takers, encourage their kids to try new things. Those are the kids that ended up starting businesses at the age of 16 and become millionaires by 25. And so as parents, we have to kind of relinquish some of that fear and just let our kids try things and let our kids go for it and let our kids learn, because that's ultimately how they're going to be successful. And my dad told me over and over again, it was never going to work. And even after I was successful in making $200,000, $300,000 a year, he still told me it wasn't going to work. I was like, Dad, wake up. And it's just because I don't know what it was, but I'm sure at some point in his life, he tried and took a risk and it didn't work out. And he's just trying to protect me. But, that's just how it goes. And so we have to overcome those things. The only way you're ever going to overcome it is to have a why that is so deep and so powerful that you have determined in your mind, you have to make this work. There is no plan B. There is no plan C. You make it work or you die trying. And you have to get to that point where everything goes into this and failure is not an option. And I got to that point in every single business that quote unquote failed. I don't see those as a failure. I see those as a learning experience that got me one step closer to my successful business.
Scott, I don't have that many chips. I don't have that many chips to push all in. I'm too fearful because I want to hold on to this one, right? I'm used to try and turn this nickel into a dime. I'm living check to check already. All these things that kind of buries inside of us, because we're not used to that, or there's another thought process as well. You want me to think outside the box also, Scott. That's not what I've been learned. That's not what I was taught in school, primary school, high school, middle school. Even if I go to college, I'm not always taught to think outside of the box, let alone someone else's box, and so if I've been so confined in this space, yes, I understand what my why is saying to me. I might be dreaming about it. I might be fantasizing about it. But unfortunately, sometimes that self-doubt, bro, like it keeps beating me up, to be honest.
I'm going to let you know my third life motto. I've only got 3. This is the third one. And it's don't let school get in the way of your education. Think about that. There was a study done years ago that tried to figure out how many kids were geniuses. And so they gave this age-appropriate test for a genius level test to a wide variety of students. And they started with people in pre-K. So people that were basically in daycare, pre-K. And they found that giving them the genius test, 60% of kids registered as genius. They did the test again in kindergarten, and that number had dropped to 55%. They did the number again in second grade. That number had dropped to about 40%. They did the test again in middle school. The number had dropped to about 30%.
Wow.
They did it again in high school as freshmen. The number was all the way down to about 20%. They did it again as a senior in high school. The number was around 10%. They did it again for college graduates. The number was down to 2%.
Wow.
Now, what happened? Did kids get stupider? No. They got molded. They got molded to think and act like everybody else. Why? Because in school, if you don't put in the correct answers, you get low grades.
Right.
And you're taught that you have to do exactly what you're told, the exact same way you're told. You have to think in a certain way in order to get good grades. And it's not shocking that the most successful business owners are C students. Because the kids that are like, okay, yeah, I'm going to obey all the rules and go get my A's, those people generally make really good people for the military or any other job where obeying rules and obeying orders is really important. The kids, they get C grades, are the ones that think outside of the box. They're thinking differently. They're creative. And those are the ones that end up being really successful in business. And that was me. I graduated college, but my college required a 2.5 GPA to graduate, and I graduated with a 2.53. I mean, I literally had one class I wasn't sure if I was going to get a D or a C in, and I wasn't sure if I was going to graduate. I literally had to grab the graduation pamphlet on the day of graduation and flip through it to try to find my name because I wasn't sure if I was going to graduate or not. And that's the thing. You can't let school get in the way of your education because school is going to mold you into being a good employee. A 4-year college degree does one thing and one thing only. It is designed to get you your first job. If you want to be successful in business, why are so many successful business owners college dropouts? It's because college teaches you to get a job. And if you want to be in business, you got to learn something brand new. You got to learn something completely different from what you were taught in school. That's the whole reason I started Faith Roar, was to help people learn a different way and how they have to think in order to be successful in business, because no school is going to teach it to you.
So you were talking about being molded. We're talking about thinking outside the box. We're thinking about viewing things a little differently. So Scott, unfortunately, I feel like I need to invest $5,000. I need to invest $25,000 in order for me to have a profitable business, right? But you're telling us, again, thinking outside the box, I could do it for nothing, pretty much. So how does that look and feel to know that, hey, you know what, I can have something that's not going to cost financial responsibility or investment, but I can still be profitable. So what does that look like and feel like for you?
I'm going to give you 2 examples of ways that I did it. Now, we've talked a lot about the YouTube channel. We'll start with that one. That's a service-based business. And I think for most people, when they're first starting out a business, they're going to be self-employed. They're going to do something where they get paid based upon the amount of work that they put in.
Right.
And for a lot of people, that means being a consultant in whatever industry you're already doing.
Right.
You may not realize this, but you ever feel like as an employee, you're not getting paid what you're worth? Well, guess what? You're absolutely right.
Yep.
Because if your boss paid you what you were worth, they wouldn't be able to make any money. And the company that hired you is in business to make money. So you are an investment for the company that hired you. The company has to pay you less than what you're worth so that they can make a profit based upon the input that you put in. And if you go out and you start doing contract work, the same thing you're doing now, but you start contracting to these small businesses that can't afford to hire a full-time employee, but they still need the services you provide, you can actually charge anywhere from 3 to 5 times as much as you make at your job. Because those small companies, one, they don't have to pay all the benefits. They don't have to pay the health insurance, the time off and all that. And two, the smaller company is willing to pay a higher premium since they're only hiring you part-time. And if you go out and you get 10 people that are willing to pay you 3 to 5 times as much money as you're currently making in your current job, you could immediately increase your income 3 to 5x. And so if you're currently making $100,000 a year, you can make $300,000 a year by doing the exact same thing you're doing now, but doing it as a consultant instead of as a job. And so that's the first way that a lot of people get started. From there, you want to expand, of course, and grow bigger. But there's other ways to actually start businesses without money that don't involve being a consultant. For example, as a YouTuber, all I did was grab my cell phone that I already had, that already has a camera on it, already has a microphone. I put it up on a tripod and I started recording. And nowadays, if you look at a lot of these shorts, they don't even use a tripod. They just hold it up with their arm. And so you literally can get started with the device in your hand. If you don't want to get on video and make videos, fine. Use it to make phone calls. I mean, it's shocking, but that phone is for more than just playing games and scrolling Facebook. You can actually make phone calls on it and just start calling businesses and trying to get some clients. And the other thing is, let's say you have a product business. I'm going to show you what I did with my company, Leadership Uniforms, which has now grown to the largest school uniform company here in Colorado. And here's the most amazing thing about that. It's one of my failed businesses, but it didn't fail because it didn't work. It failed because it produced a lot of money 1 month out of the year. And it didn't provide me that year-long income that I needed. So I still run it today on the side. And the way I got that started was this. When my boys were getting ready to go into school, into kindergarten, we were looking for a school for them, and there was a new charter school starting up. And we're like, hey, we kind of like the school, kind of like what they're doing, kind of like what they're teaching. Let's go ahead and enroll them. Well, they were trying to figure out what they were going to do for school uniforms. And my little brain saw an opportunity. And I called up the principal, and I said, hey, I can provide school uniforms for you guys. And they said, great. Can you send us some samples? I said, absolutely. And that was on a Thursday. I hung up the phone. I immediately got to work calling around, trying to find a manufacturer, found one on Friday. And the entire weekend I spent putting together a quick and dirty website. I then went back to the school on Monday. And I said, all right, here's photos of all my uniforms. Here's all the pricing. Would you like to work with us? They said, yeah, absolutely. I said, great. Here's what we're going to do. And I didn't have money to buy inventory. So I said, we're going to do pre-sales. And from now until about a month before school starts, all the parents are going to go on the website. They're going to order the uniforms. And then right before school starts, we're going to place a big bulk order with the manufacturer. And then we're going to give the parents all the uniforms. And this way, the parents are able to save a ton of money. And that's why we're going to do it this way. And it worked. And I had about $10,000 in sales that summer. Actually, it was about $15,000 in sales. I used it. I spent about $10,000 to buy inventory. I then shipped out all those uniforms. I took the $5,000 in profit and used it to buy more inventory. And that's how I got that business started. So you don't need money, but there is one thing that is true about any of those. I gave you 3 examples. There's one common denominator between all 3 of those, and that is you have to make sales first. So You don't go quit your job and become a consultant. No, you pick up the phone, you start making calls, you get those sales first, you get those clients, then you build up your income and quit your job. I didn't go jump on YouTube and just quit my job and go after it. No, I spent 3 months making videos, building up my income, getting it up to $12,000 a month. Then I quit my job. I didn't just go out and spend 10 grand on inventory in my uniform business. I went out and made pre-sales. So there's an old rule in business that sales solve all problems. And you have to make sales first. If you don't have any money, fine. Go make sales, get that money coming in, then deliver the product. That's how you get started with no money.
Wow, Scott. I mean, you did say a mouthful. I'm going to be honest with you. Because a lot of times we don't understand what that looks like and feels like. We're also kind of a little gun shy. You know, there's some moments I can hear people being spoken or talked to out of an opportunity. You know, I don't trust you to give you X amount of money beforehand, especially if you don't have a product in hand. I hear the opportunity for that product to even being shipped. Is there a delay? Are there other inconsistencies with the product? You know, all those type of things. So I can hear where people could kind of come at them, make them feel little and all that type of stuff. What I'm getting at is that, as you're saying that, you know, people have problems, people have challenges. So with that, Scott, as people are dealing with these things and they need more inspiration for someone to talk them through the process, where can they talk to you? Because, Scott, I have a problem. I need to talk to someone who knows what the business is like. I know someone who has some answers, may not be every answer, but may also be able to point me into the right direction for an answer. So, Scott, where can they find you and talk to you?
Absolutely. I created an entire community to help people get their businesses started and grow their businesses. And if you go to faithroarcommunity.com, that's faith, like having the faith that it's going to work, and the faith in God is going to make it work. And roar, letting your faith roar, faithroarcommunity.com. At faithroarcommunity.com, we have business consultants, we have investing consultants, we have attorneys, we have CPAs, we have every single professional advice you need to get started and be successful. And I am in there as well. And I specifically designed that community to help people just like you, the person listening right now, who wants to get started, but maybe they're a little scared. Maybe they tried, they had a little bit of downturn. Maybe they tried, they had a few people tell them no, or it's not going to work, or give up, or what are you doing? You're crazy. For people like you that have this desire, but you just need a little bit of hand holding and a little bit of help figuring it out, I created faithroarcommunity.com for you specifically. And as a thank you for listening to the end of this podcast, I'm going to offer you 50% off for life. All you have to do is enter coupon code podcast at checkout. And by entering coupon code podcast at checkout, I'm going to give you 50% off for life just to help you get that business started and finally realize your dreams.
Nice, Scott. Of course, everyone, the information will be in the show notes, so you don't have to go very far. So if you're en route somewhere, you're driving, you're riding your bike, it will be right there. So, Scott, I want to say thank you very much for coming on to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure, and I sincerely hope that you, the listener, got a lot out of this. If you're not already following or subscribed to the show, make sure you do that now. Hit the like button, give a review. It's going to help Maurice out and help thousands of other people just like you learn and help them start their businesses and realize their dreams as well.
Scott, I thank you very much for the end show commercial, bro. Like, but I do have one more question. I got to ask you the main question.
All right, go ahead.
Would you rather choose 3 doors or a fork in the road?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the super adventurous side of me would say pick one of the doors because you don't know what's behind it and it's super exciting. But the more rational side of me has got to pick the fork in the road because I think it's a lot like life or business. Every single time is a fork in the road. Every decision you make is a fork in the road. am I going to get this business started and take that narrow path that can lead to tremendous success and joy in the future? Or am I going to take this wide path that most people take that seems safe until I get laid off from my job and life is miserable? And so for me, I think I would rather take the fork in the road. Just like Jesus said, the road to heaven is narrow, the path to hell is wide. And the same is true in life and business. If you take that wide path, it can very often lead to a lot of hell in your life, especially if you get laid off or somebody gets sick and you don't have enough time to take off work to go take care of them. That narrow path is always, in my mind, the way to go, because it might be a lot more difficult. It might be rockier. It might be a lot more hilly, but man, at the other side, it is all worth it.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Scott, man, I appreciate the words of wisdom that you impart on the guest today.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a real pleasure.
Sure, no problem. And I thank y'all for listening to That Will Nevr Work podcast. But of course, I got to leave you with a challenge. Start today with what you have. Pick one platform, pick one skill or area of knowledge that you already know and or own. Create one piece of content, one service offer, one conversation to start, and do it for this week for free with no money starting today. And you are not allowed to wait until the logo is designed, so no procrastination, no hesitation, or until the website is live or the business plan is totally complete. Do the thing first. Everything else follows after the doing. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to y'all just a little bit later.
Thanks for listening. Follow Maurice Chisholm on social media to stay connected and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work. Or will it?